must excuse any noises that you may hear outside. There's workmen over next doors. They're guttering out their house. Now the lockdown is easing. Workmen can come into our homes, and next doors are taking advantage of that. But it's making the dogs bark because the dogs aren't used to all of that noise. So please forgive me if you can hear some banging and scraping and dogs barking, but never mind. The question is, how did I get started with holistic living? This is what this video is all about, how I got started, how I got interested, and what I think holistic living is for my life. Everybody has a different point of view of what holistic living is. Some just look at it as alternative remedies, and others sort of as some sort of spirituality. It is such a broad term, and everybody interprets holistic living in their own way. And over the years, since the 1960s, since I was 15, 16 years old, it has evolved in my life, and I've come to have a life which is, I believe, is holistic, which I'm aware of the mind, body and spirit connection in everyday life. So that leads me into all issues to do with the mind and mental health, with learning, psychological issues, physical functioning of the brain, etc., etc. Everything to do with the mind. And that leads me on to the body connection. And so I'm interested in everything about the body, about nutrition, about exercise, about alternative therapies, how the body heals itself, and how God heals the body. And so how we wear clothes and how that helps with our identity and our bodily image, and understanding that the body knows. And the body will tell us what is best for the body, making the mind-spirit connection. And then we come to the spirit, and that is about spirituality. It's just not what I believe, but it is who I am. Because what I believe, my faith in Jesus Christ, is basically who I am. It's not something that I believe out here, and something that I do on a Sunday or on a Saturday, but it is something that Jesus Christ promised, a new and living way, that we become new people, new creatures, and we are to express that newness in our lives. And so that's how I interpret the body, mind and spirit connection in a nutshell. And over the course of this channel, through many videos, I'll be touching on all sorts of subjects, because our whole life is our mind, body, spirit concern and connection. And videos about planning, and that's all got to do with our minds, our mental health. It's got to do with our success. It's got to do with and how our brain functions, and has direct physical bearing upon our bodies. Our minds are so powerful, and there's a thing called the heart-math connection, and I'll be talking a little bit about that in videos to come, and how our minds are so powerful and can directly make our bodies well or make our bodies sick. It can make us successful, or our minds can make us depressed and upset. That you are a soul being. You are just not a mind, you are just not a body, but you are a spirit housed within a body. It's interpreted through your mind. Without your mind, your spirit would not have expression. Without your body, your spirit would not have an identity. So all of those connections we'll be talking about during my videos and just touching on them. So, you know, subscribe and keep in touch with that. And because every time I do a video, I'll share a little bit more about my life so you can get to know me. Because there's one thing that I've always purposed and I've always done in my life, that I will never teach or encourage or advise on anything that I haven't got already in my own life. If it's not tried and true in my own life, I'm not going to share it, because I feel that it's not authentic, that it's just not real. I don't want to take from other people's teachings and just reinterpret them to you and not practicing that in my own life. I don't think that, I don't know, as I said, it's not authentic, isn't it? It's not real. And if I'm to make the mind-body-spirit connection within these videos, I want to make them with you. I want to be able to share my life with you. As I said down in this description box, you know, I've lived a long time, well into my mid-60s now, and I've got so many experiences that I can share with you and pass on to you, so it may help you somehow and some way in your life, and to enhance your mind, to enhance your body, to enhance your spirit and your faith life. And that's what life is all about, isn't it? It's helping one another. It's leaving behind who we are, rather than what we can give and our material possessions. I do a lot of funerals, particularly during this COVID-19 being a past, but also within the community, non-churched people. And I always say that the best legacy that anybody can leave behind is themselves. Because money, that's nothing. Money comes and goes. Big houses come and goes. Learning comes and goes. But like 1 Corinthians 13:1 says, that we can have all the abilities, we can have all the intellect, we can do all the good works, but the only thing that is remaining is love. And so if I can pass on experience in love from my life, well, my life job has been done, and I'm happy with that. And so no matter how old we are or how young we are, we can share our experiences so each other can benefit. So what about how I got started? Well, let's have a sip of coffee and we'll get into that, shall we? Well, in the 60s and the 70s, in my later childhood and my early teenage years, I lived in Adelaide, South Australia, in a suburb called Grange. And it was a big street, a big long street, and it wasn't very far from the beach, and I used to absolutely love going for walks down the beaches by myself to meditate and to think and contemplate the world and trying to figure out what life is all about, as you do as a young person. And then one day, nearly down the end of the street, new neighbours came in, and they were different. They were sort of a bit hippie-ish. And these people intrigued me because they were completely different to anybody else in the street, completely different to my family. The father had long hair, and all the boys, they had a family of boys, and all of them had very long hippie-ish type of hair. So I was incredibly intrigued. And so over time I got to know the mother. You know, in Australia, when the weather's fine, everybody's in the front garden watering the garden, and so, you know, I had an occasion to get to know the mother, and she invited me in, and I met the rest of the family. And there she offered me some food, which I duly took, and it was the most unusual food. that I'd had ever seen. It would the bread had grains in it, and it wasn't white to what I was used to. It was brown, and to my recollection, thank you. I'm a bit, being dyslexic, I also used to have a very bad speech impediment that I'll do another video on, and how I overcame that. And I still at times get tripped up in my speech. So in my videos, if I'm tripping over words at times and they go too quick so I can't edit them out, well, forgive me, it's because it's the residue of a very bad speech impediment which I had as a child. Anyway, getting back to the family, and they gave me this bread, and they gave me this homemade jam, and it was completely different to the jam that I had seen. It had great big chunks of fruit in it, and it had no sugar in it. And so I asked them, what is this, and how did you make it? And then they told me and how they made the bread and how they made the jam. It was not boiled jam. They whizzed dried fruit up in a food processor, added honey, and that was their jam. And so I was absolutely interested. And then they took all these vitamin tablets out, or vitamin tablets out, depends on what side of the pond you are to how you pronounce that. And they told me why they take these vitamin tablets and what they were for. And I could see how healthy they were, that their skin glowed, and they were happy, and their eyes are bright and clear. And they didn't seem to have a lot of sickness. And so over the years, I got to know them, and I started adapting their ways. And I was a ladies' hairdresser and a beautician at the time, and of course the body connection went along with the nutrition, because I was interested, of course, in the beauty of the hair, and I used to do face massages, and I used to do, I was a Mary Quant beautician. I did that course in trade school, and of course I used to be so interested, and we used to do a shoulder and face massage, so I could see the connection with beauty and nutrition. And so in my lunch times, I would go to the local health shop, and there was only one health shop around at that time called the Sanatorium, of all things, in Adelaide, and I used to go and buy myself what they used to call a yogurt pie, and some other dried fruit bars. And so that was sort of my introduction to holistic living. And so from there it sort of developed, because I could really see in real time how it worked. And of course I purchased books. The internet wasn't around that. We didn't have the internet then, so I couldn't Google it. So I had to buy books and to learn about holistic living, although it wasn't called that then. It might have been called that, but I didn't come across it. It's just healthy living, basically. And so I made that nutrition and beauty connection. And then years passed. I became a manager of the salon, and then I bought a salon down in West Beach in Adelaide. And then I came to faith in Christ, and then I went into nursing initially. And there's another video, a coffee chat, that I'll actually share with you about how I came to faith in Christ and that journey. So that's the coffee chat. Look out for that one. And so when I became a nurse, of course, in those days, again, it was the days where the matrons were on the wards, and we did in-house training. We did our training actually in the hospital. And in the hospital, they had rooms, and they had a school of nursing, so we didn't have to go to university. It was all accredited, and the people that taught us were nurses and doctors, and they were accredited to teach. And that's where I did my training. And I had one of my tutors was Scottish, and she was absolutely hot and fast on nutrition, and she taught us all about nutrition for healing of the body and of the mind. And so that was sort of another step, another connection. And so I learned a lot about the science, about vitamins, what they were and what they did, where they came from, how they affect the body, so on and so forth, and how they affect the mind, and how the mind affects the emotions. And then later on, quite a few years later, after my vast experience of nursing, I worked in maternity hospitals, incurable sickness hospitals, in general wards, in what they called geriatric at that time, all sorts of mental health wards I practiced in. And then time went on. I got married and had children, and became ordained in the church as a minister, and went to Bible school, and starting to learn more about the spirituality, and a lot of the Bible verses were about food. There was a lot, particularly in the Old Testament, about food, and there's a mention of food in the New Testament. And because of the background I already had, I started to make the connections between the mind and the body and the spirit, and it all started to make sense. The Apostle Paul in the Bible says that bodily discipline is of little profit, and it's the spiritual that counts. And a lot of people who were my friends at the time interpret that, well, the body doesn't matter. It's saying that the body doesn't matter. It's the spiritual that counts. And so a lot of Christians just concentrates on the spirit. They can be obese to the point where it's really affecting their health negatively. They can have huge mental problems. So I've had depression, so I know what that's all about, but not looking after that area. They concentrate on the spirit. And I never agreed with that. That's not what the Apostle Paul was saying. The Apostle Paul's saying is that in the space of eternity, bodily discipline is of little profit, because once you die, once you're dead, your body falls away, and what is left is your spirit. And so that's what goes on for eternity, and that's what we need to concentrate on. But he's not saying don't concentrate on your body. He's not saying don't concentrate on your mind. He's not saying that. We misinterpret that. And so I started to see that if God made us in his image, and he housed us in a body, and we are his temples of his spirit, and therefore we need to look after ourselves, mind, body and spirit. I felt that I had a responsibility to myself, to my family who I was looking after, because I needed to stay well to look after them. I had responsibility to myself, so I can enjoy my life and get up in the morning thinking, this is a wonderful day. And a responsibility to God, because God's given me this body to live in, and I need to be looking after it. It's given me a mind to express my spirit through, so I need to be looking after my mind as well. And I could see that that whole connection thing. And then over the years in my studies, I did a lot of psychology, and then I went on to, years later in my 50s, I did psychology, part of my Master of Arts in Counselling. There's the dogs going. Just ignore them. It's all the banging and everything across the road that she's upset about. I hope she doesn't continue, otherwise I'm going to have to turn this off. Kiki, shh. That's a good girl. Quiet. That's a good girl. That's a good girl. She's behind the door. And then I understand through psychology, and I would look at some of the scriptures in the Bible, and I think, well, this is what Jesus was saying, but just in different words. You know, the principles of psychology coming through Jesus' teaching without it being called psychology. I could see the person-centered therapeutic intervention that I learned during counselling through the actions and the teachings of Jesus, just been called in different words. So nothing is new under the sun, is it? It just gets reinvented and understood a little bit more. So I could see how the mind, body and spirit all connect together and have a bearing upon one another. If our mind is sick, it will reflect some way in our bodies. When I was in the NHS as a chaplain here in the UK, I worked on in mental, it wasn't a ward, it was an actual hospital by itself. And I also ran a general ward cottage hospital during the chaplaincy office. I ran that. And I could really see that and how people's bodies were made ill because of their minds. Their posture, the way they walked, and their bodies carried the weight of their mental illness. And at that time, the NHS put out a statistic, and it said that something like 82% or something like that, 80-something% of patients who goes through the GP office, which is the local doctor's office, is psychosomatic. And they listed a lot of conditions which are thought to be psychosomatic. And it was during those years, and we're talking about in the early 2000s, that CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, became big within the NHS because of this statistic, and to help people, because the mind-body connection was absolutely so powerful. And having said that, it affects our spirits, because if our bodies are ill, if our minds are ill, if we're not feeling well, we start questioning our faith and the real us. It's difficult we think that we are our minds, and if our minds feel downcast and depressed and we think it's us. And you know what? The truth is, it's not us. That is our minds. Our mind is a channel. It's a house so your spirit can be captured and be expressed. The eyes of the window of the soul, and doctors say that the mechanisms of our eyes are actually part of our brains. It's so interesting. It's really interesting. I wish I were living for 200 years. I could understand all this, and I wish I wasn't dyslexic, because then I could remember it all, everything that I've learned. Because with dyslexia, short-term retaining information can be really difficult, and it's so interesting and it's just so clear to me how the mind, body and the spirit are connected. So, as a pastor of a church, as a counsellor and a coach, this is what I take in all I do to help others, because one has bearing upon the other. Just to isolate the mind, for example, is not bringing a person into wholeness. And that you can't be 100% recovered or healed in the mind unless your spirit is addressed, the real you is addressed. And your body can't be 100% healed unless your mind is addressed. And doctors have said from all around the world, many research, peer-reviewed journals have declared this, many books on your bookshelves, probably at home, have declared this. We've seen this in newspapers, that people who pray while they are recovering from an operation or illness recover far quicker than anybody else. Likewise, people who sing and who are joyful and have a positive outlook, their bodies recover a lot quicker than most people. And so if we're looking at our bodies in isolation to be healed and we're neglecting our minds, it's going to be a very long recovery, if at all. So we are all connected. You are mind, body, and spirit. We can't isolate them. They're all connected, and they're all as beautiful and wonderful as each other, each equally as important, each need to be nurtured and looked after. And we can't nurture and look after our mind, body and spirit if we don't learn about them. If we don't understand the science of our mind, body, of spirit, if we don't understand our spirituality and the workings of our faith, if we don't understand how us as an individual react and how we interpret the world through our minds and how we identify ourselves through our bodies, if we don't know how it works with us, then we really truly can't care for ourselves. It seems like a big load, doesn't it? But it's not something that you learn in 5 minutes. And this is why I say on my website that holistic living is not what we do, is who we are. It's all encompassing. It's a journey. Holistic living is a journey through life that brings wholeness, that brings shalom, which is not just peace, but it's wholeness in our mind, body and spirit and our lifestyle and in our community. And if we are whole people, it affects our community. It affects our communications with other people, what we do, our decisions, our work in the community, and community will benefit in that way. And so holistic living is not about just looking after the individual. It's taking the responsibility of ourselves as an individual, knowing that the ripple effect will affect the others we live with, our children, our spouses, our loved ones, our partners, our friends, our workmates, and it is about community. And I think for my part, I've dedicated myself back in the mid-70s to serve God, and in serving God we serve others. We can't serve God without serving others. So I feel that I have a responsibility to other people, to community, by also looking after myself. And you know what? That helps me get up out of bed in the morning. We've been locked down off and on here in Wales, more than England has, for more than a year. And because I live alone, and because I've moved to a new place and I don't know very many people, I haven't had what they call a bubble. A bubble is you can interact with 2 or 3 people on a consistent basis within your own home, but nobody else during lockdown. I haven't had a bubble because I don't know anybody. My nearest friends are 50 miles away, and my family is 3 hours drive away. And so I've virtually been by myself physically, because most of my interactions has been through Zoom, through telephone calls, through Skype, running up and down the motorway doing funerals, and we're not allowed to have much interaction with people. And so virtually I've been living life as a monk, really. Like the desert fathers and mothers that I love reading about, I've had the opportunity to do that. But what has kept me up in the morning, kept me going, is this idea of holistic living and having a responsibility to other people. So I've reinterpreted and reinvented my gifts, my talents, my ministry, my coaching online. And I've got another video that shares a little bit on how I've done that. Well, that's a little bit about how I came into holistic living and why it is important to me and how I see what holistic living actually is. This may be of interest to you, and if it is, please subscribe and watch out for other videos, and please leave comments and ask questions if you wish to, because that will help me to see, what is out there, so I can make the appropriate videos to what people would like to know. I'm trying to develop a Facebook community as well, and at the moment it is free, but as it builds up, it'll be private members only, but that's in time to come. Everything's new here, and so everything's just getting started. Have a look at my banners and my creative works on Instagram. If you wish to follow me on Instagram, please do that. All the details of those things are downstairs. And I'm developing a course at the moment about holistic living. And so if you're interested in taking a course to help you to get started with this, please comment down below and leave me your contact details. And when I get that up and running in the summer, I will announce that, because the course will only be available a couple of times a year. But that will sort of give you the support that you need to help you to get started with holistic living. Well, thank you very much for watching once again. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And in the meantime, live life in hope, faith and love to transform your life. And I nearly knocked that over, sorry. It's got real coffee in that as well. It's probably cold by now. And so sorry of messing up this goodbye, but God bless. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye for now. Sorry of messing up this goodbye, but God bless. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye for now.